I want to bring in now, live, Liberal Senator Jane Hume. She joins us from Canberra. Jane, thanks so much for your time. This has literally just been tweeted in the last couple of moments, or at least the last hour or so, very recently. This means that the review that was meant to be completed, just a month-long review, no longer will be. That's been pushed back to the end of the year. Do you think that's a good sign for the future of AUKUS, or perhaps a more ominous one?
Look, potentially this is very good news. It gives the government an opportunity to not just meet with the President personally, because we know that Anthony Albanese is yet to secure a meeting with President Trump, but most importantly, to put in place demonstrations, real-life case studies of how we can work with the US better in this very important strategic alliance, this important agreement with not just the US, but also with the UK. So we get a chance now to demonstrate our commitment to AUKUS, as well as have the US see the benefits of that for their economy, for their defence, for not just global stability, regional stability, and that relationship with the UK as well. So I think this is a great opportunity. I'm very pleased to hear this announcement.
Okay, so taking a glass half full approach there. Thank you for your response on that. As we were just listening to that media conference with Donald Trump, it came through. So appreciate that. Jane, I want to also ask you about the situation in Gaza. We see France move on recognising Palestine. This is all about putting pressure on Israel. Now we've seen the UK done it, albeit with a caveat, so pushing Israel to get a lasting ceasefire deal. We've seen the US not break away from Israel on that recognition of Palestine, but we have seen Donald Trump, I think, increasingly concerned about the humanitarian crisis here. Do you think Israel is losing international support?
There's no doubt that some of the images that are now coming out of the war zone are terribly confronting. And everybody wants to see not just an end to the war, but an end to the humanitarian crisis as well. We want to make sure that there is safe passage of aid to civilians. However, the coalition's position has always been very clear-eyed on this. We want a two-state solution where two states, Palestine and Israel, can live together, can coexist side by side in peace. That two-state solution simply cannot exist while Hamas is still the governing body of Palestine, of Gaza. Now, it's just physically impossible to try and recognise, to offer recognition of Palestine as a separate state is essentially giving in to Hamas. It's putting the cart well before the horse. It's going to be an impossible thing to maintain.
Yeah,
so
but what would be an acceptable body?
Solution, we simply cannot.
That's what's intractable, because Benjamin Netanyahu has also said the Palestinian Authority is not an acceptable body as well. So who would be?
You're right. So we need to find, an appropriate way through this conundrum. But the first thing that has to happen is Hamas needs to surrender, and we need to see the return of the hostages. There are still 50 hostages. There's still 50 hostages in Gaza. Israel suggests that around 27 of them are probably already dead. We need to make sure that Hamas return those hostages. It's been 662 days, I think it is now, since the October 7 incursion. It's time to return the hostages to Israel. That is the first step in this process. Only then, once Hamas has surrendered,
is it the first step?
Hostages have been returned. Can you make that two-step solution, that two-state solution happen?
Is really the hostages the first step here?
Hamas can end the war today. They can end it today.
Okay, but aid is a separate issue, because we know that Israel controls what's going on within Gaza at the moment. So wouldn't the first step be making sure that children aren't starving?
Well, certainly. We have said that we want to see the safe passage to aid to civilians. That's profoundly important. But in order to create a two-state solution, in order to recognise Palestine, the first thing that happened is Hamas has to surrender and the hostages need to be returned. It's the only way that this is ever going to happen. And anything else is essentially rewarding Hamas for this extraordinarily awful behaviour for October 7. We cannot have that happen again.
Let's talk about YouTube now. The government expanding the social media ban for children under 16. That would go to YouTube. I would assume that this wouldn't mean YouTube Kids. Is that a safe assumption?
I think that the Minister has already been very clear about that,
Okay.
YouTube Kids has been exempted. And look, we absolutely are committed to ensuring safety online for our children. We don't want them exposed to harmful content. The Coalition will obviously go through these regulations when they are tabled in Parliament. But I think this is a really important point. When the original legislation was presented, YouTube was specifically excluded. So now Labor have come out and said that they're going to include them based on a recommendation from the e-Safety Commissioner. But it does seem that the research that the e-Safety Commissioner used here was in fact a survey. And I'm not entirely sure about the veracity of that research. Now, I just did a little straw poll in my office this morning, and there's a few parents in there. They use YouTube all the time, put the kids, the Thomas the Tank Engine, all those sorts of things. YouTube does seem to have a lot of very good guardrails.
They do,
content.
but you can.
So
I don't know about that, because you can get Thomas the Tank Engine on YouTube Kids, for example. But the problem with YouTube, as separate from YouTube Kids, is that you do have content that they can access, and there's an endless line of it. I know very well. I've got a 5 and 8-year-old that they get into this whole of videos after videos after videos, and it's real. I don't think YouTube has the appropriate age recommendations like you would in the old system of movies and TV shows if you're getting it through linear. So perhaps that could be where the middle ground is, that they're, for kids under 16, there is a login where on YouTube, not YouTube Kids, they can only access content that is appropriate. But I don't know whether YouTube can or does have that kind of age rating appropriateness system.
And neither do I. That's why the first thing I did this morning was contact YouTube and ask for a briefing on this very issue. Because while we want protections there's a very fine line between protections and unnecessary censorship. Now, you can still access YouTube videos without having an account. So how is this going to work for children? We want to make sure that the safeguards are there and put in place and are appropriate. But this could potentially be overkill. Moreover, I want to understand exactly what kind of research this is based on. So, I have great respect for the e-Safety Commissioner, Julie Inman-Grant. Obviously, that's a position that was established originally under the Coalition, and it was a world first. But because it's a world first, it's also a little bit of, building the plane while we're flying it.
Yeah.
We don't want to go over the top here. We don't want to turn into a censorship state. We want to make sure that everyday Australians can access everything from, I use YouTube to work out how to change the filter on my dishwasher. Why should children be banned from that kind of content? Let's just, take this very slowly with, very clear eyes before we make rash decisions based on questionable research.
Jane, I just want to ask you one more question. It's a story in the AFR this morning about public service bosses expressing work from home concerns. He's expressed concern about the state of the public service in 5 years unless high rates of work from home in the sector are addressed. This is from Blair Comley, the Secretary of the Department of Healthcare and Ageing. Do you feel vindicated somewhat from those comments?
Look, flexible work arrangements are always going to remain. They're really profoundly important for attracting and retaining talent. But it's getting that fine balance between productivity and making sure that, and the work's being done and getting value for taxpayer money. Now, if the public service themselves are saying this potentially could be a problem, that's the perfect solution. They can sort out their own productivity issues to make sure that it's working for everybody. So it's
where was
nothing
Blair
to do with
during the election campaign?
Can I tell you?
That's what you'd be asking, surely.
Look, no, I'm not asking those questions. They are questions for the public service alone. We just want to make sure that we deliver an effective and efficient public service that's serving the Australian taxpayer well. There's big jobs ahead, big problems to solve. We want to make sure that the public service are working to solve those big problems as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Yeah.
If they have problems with their own workplace practices, that's probably something they should deal with.
He said 22% attendance rate among his 7,000 employees, implications for productivity, long-term adverse impacts. That's exactly what you were saying, weren't you?
Well, look, again, That is not a policy that the coalition has now. It's not a policy that we took to the election, you will recall. But I do think that there is a genuine desire around this building from all quarters and in the public that while we maintain flexible workplace practices, they are here for forever, that they are sensibly negotiated, that they are worked out between employers and employees so that they work for everybody and deliver on the promise of, whether it be the public service or the private sector, whatever it is, that we increase productivity. And, hey, Labor have finally cottoned on to the idea of productivity. We spoke about it for for the 3 years of the last parliament that productivity had gone backwards. How do we improve it? Everywhere. We need to this needs to be 100% of our focus needs to be on productivity, because without it, we don't grow the economy. Without productivity, you cannot have wage rises without creating inflation. It's our number one focus right now.
Blair Comley, welcome. And I'm not sure whether he's going to be invited to the productivity roundtable, but we will see. Won't hold my breath on that one. Jane,
we will see.
Thanks so much.